G'day, mate. Welcome to CIO YARN Live, and I gave it a cracking good Aussie yarn live because I've just been learning a little bit about Tim, which includes Australia. So let's kick off with a bit of a reminder. This is CIO YARN Live, where we have three big questions: culture, tech, and the lesson that you wish you'd learned when you're 20 or someone told you when you're 20. And of course, I'd like to take a moment to thank Parallo, who are our sponsors. So Shaun Weber and Simon Thurlow. I almost had a classic Ryan moment where I forgot someone's name that I know so well. But the lads have been looking after us for 5 years, and it's great to have their support. And they'll be bringing this month's CIO Yarn Live to you. And of course, our special guest, which the focus is on, Mr. Tim Partington, with the special moustache, which is one of our first questions that I wanted to. Well, it doesn't have to be the first question, but the way we always start, as you've probably seen or know, Tim, is that we get you to introduce yourself AFQY styles, which is to meet the person, not the suit. Hence, things like the moustache, being Australian, anything else. Let's get into it. So, if you could.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So a bit about me.
Yeah.
I'm married with two kids from my first wedding, two adult daughters, love motorcycling, keen president of the New Zealand MV Augusta Owners Club, ride all sorts of bikes, do a lot of commuting on my bike, not recently though. And essentially I'm a transplanted Aussie. I moved over here 25 years ago and love it. It's my home. The mustache, beard.
So the question I asked him beforehand was, is it natural? Does it grow white down here and dark across there, or is there a little bit of extra zing in those twists that help it go dark?
No, it's just nature sort of built it that way, and it's gradually it's just going grey slower than the rest of the beard. That's all. I'm a big fan of snotty, so I'm just trying to live.
I think you might be pipping him now. I think So I keep on trimming mine, but because it gets to that bit wiry, crazy point, and to sort of go, but if I twirl these bits down and get two white stripes. It
was just the way that it came out, basically.
Yeah.
So my wife, I've often had a goatee, and my wife asked me to grow a beard, and so I did. And every time I shave it off, she runs around screaming and says, "Grow it back, please. You look like an idiot."
I get the same, but I've got such a baby face underneath the rug. It's not funny. And if I wear a cap, you can't see the age on top. People mistakenly think I get done for ID at the bottle shop sometimes, depending on who it is. And of course, with a bit of extra chubby weight, that makes me even more baby, more younger. But if I lose a bit of weight, then I start looking a bit more aged. But yeah, it's funny.
You still cycling with snotty?
People my ID, I was like, "You're 45? No way!" It's like, yeah. Alrighty. Hey, look, that's a good rundown. And the two adult kids, they're off into the world, enjoying life and everything. Are they here in New Zealand, or are they Australia?
Both Kiwi girls in various parts of Auckland and Tauranga. And a shout out to all of those parents that have had COVID and had their kids at home and struggled through the process of having kids with COVID, going through the process myself now. It's incredible. I don't know how you did it. It takes piles of patience that I really applaud you for getting through.
Yeah. Yes, well, along with the night sweats, that's probably one thing I didn't mention is the reduction in patience. It seems to be quite extreme compared to, I don't know if it's part of the illness or just the effects of the illness. But yeah, when I went through it, I was particularly short and had to really concentrate on, how do you explain it? Your natural state is just to go, rah! It's not like you're doing it deliberately. It's just how it happens. So I had to really concentrate to go, thank you. no, thank you, whatever the case might be. So yes.
It sounds like the answer to one of those questions that you're going to ask me later on. Really, it's not snapping at the question straight away.
Yeah, culture. Now I don't know if you know Mary Phillips, but bit of a mirror message for myself there. But that's okay. We'll crack on. So let's get into these big questions. These are mind-blowing, the different answers that people come from, and this is an example of neurodiversity and diverse experiences, how it shapes us. So the first one is culture, and the big picture is what sort of things about culture are important to you, and how do you actively try to shape culture in your organization. And you can take this anywhere you like. So just keep to the culture discussion is basically it.
I think that people have often looked for how do I create this fresh culture, or whether or not it's leadership driven, or reversing toxic culture, or trying to create culturally diverse environments. And for me, having a great culture is simply about having everyone on the same page, from top to bottom. It means that there's a consistent vision, and there's a consistent approach to delivery or customer service or our people focus, that everyone aligns with the true vision. I think Bill made a really good comment last week in regards to culture, and it was I think it was just making sure that the underlying messaging was all the same. And when you're bringing on board new people, it's not that they're going to bring new diverse cultural changes. It's more the fact that they're going to adopt a new family that has a singular vision about what's right, or what we're here to do. Everyone understands the why, and if everyone's working cohesively with the why, then you've got a really strong environment, and people will then effectively feel that it's a strong culture because everyone's heading in the same direction. You're not stressing at the edges. Now, it's okay to challenge the edges. I often talk about we're on a great big ship, and we can move the ship 5 degrees, but we can't do U-turns. So how do we just make sure that it's heading in the same direction with everyone on board, allowing for individuals' inputs and not being dogmatic about our direction, but certainly if you're coming on board because that's our vision and that's our plan, not just to do a job.
And you're not coming on to completely change it. You're coming on to be part of it. Because before we get into that part of it, one of the sort of more Kiwi statements borrowed from Te Ao Māori is that all paddling the waka in the same direction, all paddling together. And that's a really important thing, because as we go through all these changes, which have been happening, you've got my mug. No, I normally have my Darth Vader mug, and I haven't got it this morning, but that's a Darth Vader mug, isn't it? Hold that up. Look at that sucker. You've got exactly the same mug. What we're doing? I normally have my cup of tea and my Darth Vader mug.
No, sorry about that.
That's right. With the Force, I just threw it over to you. But yeah, coming back to the culture thing, because there's a couple of thoughts I wanted to chuck at you. One is everyone has there's a real core similarity, which is based around those core human things that make a team work, which are trust, integrity, competency, and I'll call it getting on. Could be having fun, but getting on, empathy. And then, there'll be differences according to whether you're skills or this or that, or, the obvious one that people talk about is Google and the slides, and now we're talking about the fact that slides and beanbags don't make a culture. So, all these different evolutions, but it's sort of like there's this core, and comes back to your point about we're on the same boat, working to the same vision, and yet we might shift it by 5 degrees, but we're not going to do a complete U-turn, because that would be completely changing the whole thing, right? So Yeah, it's a sorry. In short, there's all these fancy out there like, oh, we got to be doing this and this and this. And I was just sort of thinking, there's actually just a pretty simple core of those trust, integrity, empathy that are very human, with the layer of the vision, which makes it particular to that org versus some other org with a different vision or why.
I think where while we talk about the what is called a toxic culture is where people are not on the same page, where people are literally pushing outside and they're not working together and cohesively. Whether it's the departments that provide services to the client-facing and people-facing roles, or whether it's the business units themselves who are driving, everyone's got to be aligned to ensure that there's a good or a great culture within an organisation.
Yeah. Yep. And you just make me think, back to my days of tech sales and delivery, and the number of organisations I'd join, and delivery's expectation was I was just another arsehole salesperson who was going to throw shit over the fence and they're going to have to mop it up. And I'd walk in there and go, first question I'd ask is, right, do we have a handover sheet, or would you like me to use mine? And quite often they go, what's a handover sheet? And I go, well, that's where we have a whole list of all the things that you need from me as a handover, and we do that with the client in a meeting so that you have everything handed over and have an opportunity to ask of the client or myself, because sometimes it's Ryan, where is that, versus client, where is that, because Ryan should be providing it. I said, so it's the opportunity for us to hand over in a comprehensive way and give you the opportunity to get like, what? This thing exists? But until those moments, you have this real combative delivery versus sales. And every time I come into an organization like that and see it, you could just see the lack of cohesiveness and the lack of, almost working against each other, like two brothers who just keep squabbling. And of course, who gets to wear it? The business and the client. So, yeah. Do you have any examples from your background where you've seen something like that you've been able to get your oar into and fix up?
I think every individual hopefully carries through the memories and experiences of their professional and pseudo-professional careers, and drops the baggage and retains the good points. And learns from it, basically. I worked for McDonald's in Australia for 4 years, from 15 to 19. And the culture and teamwork that I learned from working at McDonald's was incredible. How to be efficient with time, how to work as a team, how to communicate. Some of those simple functions that are, what's your role? What's your purpose? Why are you here? And if it's to work on the grill, then you don't mess with the bun guy. The bun guy's got his job to do, and so those learnings you carry through, and sometimes hopefully you remember, hang on, it's not my role to be the bun guy when I'm there wrapping burgers. That, allow people to do what you've asked them to do or tasked them to do. You're not there, if you've given them the training and the skills, you're not there to micromanage them. You're there to be part of a bigger team. I worked the hardest and I had the best fun in my entire life in working in those times at McDonald's. First day I walked in there, I kid you not, there was a guy that must have been about 6'5", bright red curly hair, who was the embodiment of Ronald McDonald. He had this beaming smile, and he had all of the badges down his arms and all of the tags and all of the qualifications, and he just embraced me as the new wombat into the team, and showed me the ropes and just made engagement and your early days such a great experience. So those lessons, live with me today about how do you make onboarding people a great experience? How do you set them up for success? How do you make sure that they have what they need? And try and just maintain that. It shouldn't just be a one-off.
I haven't experienced McDonald's, but I've certainly experienced bars and working in with teams that have been magic, like you talk about. But I guess what I'll call my American experience of working in a completely systemized environment would be Gap clothing. And what I was thinking about was, and I don't know McDonald's, but you can comment on whether this is true or not, is that they make everything is explicitly covered. There's no yeah, she'll be right. There's everything. So we even had to, as part of the Gap management, and this is in London, by the way, with a whole bunch of no Americans, but part of the process was you had to put I'll call it a thank you card, but they had a special name for it. But you had to write a thing at the end of your shift. You had to write something down about something amazing that someone else did for you during that shift. And even if it was small, but you had to do something, write something down, right? So when I first got there being a Kiwi, I was like, oh, what the hell? And then I come back to my shift the next day and there's this thing there from someone that said, thanks to Ryan, most amazing smile and greetings, being greeter on his first day, wasn't shy, completely made everyone feel welcome and sent them to the right department. That's just amazing. And I looked at it and I went, well, that's just my job. Like, what's the big deal? Then I had this, little glow and warmth of feeling inside. And I was like, I think I get what this does, like, even if it's obvious, it does pass on and it builds this little bridge, even into that little. So I had to look at the name and went, I don't even know who that is. So I had to go and find them. And it ended up being the big manager of the shop who I hadn't even met, but they've been watching me the whole day. And I was the greeter. So my first day of working at Gap on Regent Street, people come and go, hi, how's it going? Welcome to Gap. You're probably looking for the women's section, mother and daughter. Yeah, okay. Come on this way. And I'll introduce you to Tim, who's looking after the women's section today. And that was the job, right? So, yeah, it's got me thinking about giving people this implicit instruction or implicit system so that all the important things that make a difference are covered and incorporated versus, potentially a pretty dry culture like a Kiwi culture where people won't typically compliment. It's just not, part of the culture. But not sure where that's going, but just my observation of that systemized approach where we in New Zealand might just leave it like, whatever. Yeah.
Before I moved to New Zealand, I spent about 10 months or maybe a 7 or 8 year period traveling backwards and forwards, implementing an ERP system across a number of sites. And it struck me that the Kiwis were the most entrepreneurial bunch of people that I'd ever come across. Was that they would start thinking very differently. I'd come from larger corporates and Americanized companies, and they just really kept thinking, how do I do this differently? How do I create a unique selling proposition? How do I make this and do it efficiently and cost effectively? Sometimes scrimping and saving, but certainly just thinking. The way that the Kiwis think was far more entrepreneurial than Aussies, which was the stark difference for me between the two cultures. And when that's translated overseas, sometimes it can seem a little bit non-corporate focused, but certainly a really key intent to drive a real positive outcome.
Yeah. I think the so if you look at population sizes and some of the behaviours that have popped up in them, what they do is convey how group dynamics change as the numbers change. Mm-hmm. So we have a very innovative or entrepreneurial background because that's the number 8 wire. Like, you didn't have everything, so you had to make what you needed sometimes. But then still in that small number, you have a different scenario to where you might say in the States or Australia with bigger numbers. have a different approach or a different layer across a culture. And just trying to think of I've got a really negative one from a different country in my mind. So I'll try and think of something else. But simply the difference of the greater number. Oh, so in a really big city, you're just a number, right?
Yep.
You're just a person. And funny thing was when I went back from London to Dunedin and I walked in to get milk from the dairy for the first time because I was living at my mum and dad's, the corner shop. And as I walked in, the lady behind the counter watched me. The person over there watched me. And that's what you do in Dunedin because they're like, who are you? You're new. It's like, no, I actually said to them, no, you're new. When I left here, different people owned this shop and they've owned it for my whole lifetime because I've been coming here since I was a kid. You're new. But the stark difference from like you walk into the dairy near where I lived in Finsbury Park and the guy wouldn't even look up. The only time he'd look up was if he heard rustling, which was, you were stealing a packet of biscuits or something. Not that I was, but plenty of people did. And you'd hear the crinkle of the packet, but you hadn't been to the counter. So you'd be like, oi. But other than that, couldn't care who you were, where you were.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the group dynamics and the difference of the number of the population. So hey, just looking at time, we're racing through it, and I've got two more big questions. So this one I always preface by share what you can share, because sometimes you can't share stuff in public. But because we're in tech and we're all into our tech, it's like probably you with your bikes, how they're tinkering with it, getting the carburetor to the right mix, so it goes glug 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 glug, or whatever the case might be. But yeah, what cool tech are you working on at the moment
Skills Consulting Group is a non-for-profit organisation and essentially germinated as what's called an ITO, industry training organisation. And the government announced in 2019 effectively the merger of the 16 polytechs and unitechs and other tech establishments under the Te Pukenga umbrella.
Yes.
And so as a result of what's called the ROVE initiative, which is the regional organisation of vocational educators, establishments, is essentially our organisation, Skills, has to effectively separate. So we're doing a little bit of a chorus telecom separation at present, and so that provided us with an opportunity to reset our tech strategy, and as a result, I'm in the fortunate position of really setting up a new greenfields business. So the Te Pukenga, the ROVE initiative means that Te Pukenga will be adopting quite a vast number of our students, as well as the other students who are moving towards other receiving organisations. So as a result of that, we're retaining a current infrastructure set and application stack that supports the Te Pukenga Go Forward platform, and Skills organisation is rebuilding and moving slightly right, still a non-for-profit, but essentially establishing a new technology stack that allows us to service our people and our students and our companies, being that we're a people-focused organisation. So the technology stack allows us to really reset our delivery platforms and ensure that we operate and build a platform going forward. So we're shifting to a full Azure stack, running a large degree of Microsoft applications, student management systems, learning management systems, employee assistance programs. As you know, Skills is all focused on people skills, basically. the supporting environments, the supporting applications are required really to ensure that we live up to our vision for being an organisation that helps people grow. So from apprentices through to sales executives, vocational guidance, all of the applications and data sets that are required to support that mean that we've got quite a diverse infrastructure and application stack. It means that we have an opportunity for growth and re-establishing our organisation.
Wow. Yeah, well, couple of things there. You got Peter Fletcher Dobson on in July, I think we have. Haven't quite got the dates yet, but he'll be one of your buddies in Te Pukenga and former BCITO. And you've known him going back a few years, back in his QE Bank days. I was having a chat, and he said, you know, when I walked into the BCITO, there was nothing digital. And of course, what are the kids these days? They're digital. And even the manuals didn't even have how to use a hammer gun. It was only how to use it. Not sorry, nail gun. Only how to use a hammer. And he's like, bit of change coming. So I don't know about the other ITOs, but another AFQY who was involved in the project to look at it. And I think the big change came about. You might know the detail more, and I believe it's public. I'm not going to say anything too amazing, but I think there was something about there was orgs that set the course and orgs that deliver the course, and then the orgs that set the course started delivering the courses, and there was too many, and therefore the amount of funding required to keep them all going, but they were basically cutting the audience too thin to make it economical. Therefore, some sort of re-amalgamation is sort of what I understand from the discussion. I'm just trying to think of his name.
Well, I think that was the perhaps the original problem that was trying to be solved as a result of the merger. Skills organisation didn't encounter those particular challenges. You know, we cover 22 at present. You know, today we cover 22 different trades, 350,000 employees, 3,500 employers, 14 different countries. So we're the largest certified agile provider in basically the Southern Hemisphere. So we deliver vocational guidance, we deliver employee assistance programs through different brands that aren't necessarily skills. So the likes of InStep, David Foreman for sales training, CDL for career guidance, IMNZ. So all of those brands sit under our umbrella.
Yeah, I thought so. I just was at the HR and L&D Tech Fest and ran into some old colleagues. So I can't remember her last name, but Nikki, who used to be my first client when I was at Computer World and put the soft ed promotions into Computer World. Shayne Hasty, who is also soft ed, and then general manager who I used to work with at Frond. Or no, he was at Simple. Sorry.
Andrew.
Yes, Andrew Smith.
Yeah.
So I was having a good chat to them at the L&D Tech Fest and hadn't twigged, but I do remember going, is this skills the same skills I know attached to you? Or is it different skills? I'm not sure, but here we go. No COVID excuses for Ryan there, just plain stupidity.
Skills. So soft ed is an incredible company. Its technology stack, and so. You know, my technology challenge is the fact that Skills has acquired a lot of new companies over the private training establishments, PTEs, over the last couple of years, and they come with their own technology stacks. So soft ed in particular has quite a creative and startup SaaS environment that has some great things, but so incorporating the good and trying to make sure that we keep our focus on the right technology to ensure that we've got an efficient and economical delivery model for our clients. and students.
Yeah. And that giggle around the creative technology stack is, I guess, every technologist knows what that means. And of course, if you're not a technologist, creative accounting, creative technologist. So it's a nice way of putting it. And yeah, of course, one of the magic things is that when you do bring a whole lot of companies together, you do need to do a bit of streamlining, not just for the cost of running disparate systems, but also the ability for one person to swap from one to another and not have to be trained on 1,000 different systems. So all pretty sensible stuff. So hey, we're just on 9:30, we're a little bit over, so I hope you're okay for 5 more minutes. If we could move to tackling the lesson question, which is, I like to frame it up as, what lesson would you give yourself now if you were talking to your 20-year-old self? We'll leave it with that. What do you?
I wouldn't be where I am today without the teams and individuals that have provided me with guidance, with support, and helped deliver outcomes to our clients and our customers. And I think the learning, or the lesson to my 20-year-old self is trust your team earlier. Make sure that they're being supported when you're a leader, and that you're providing them with a safe space to be free, be dynamic, explore what they need to explore, as opposed to trying to corral and constrain. So, those early McDonald's days where everything was so regimented meant that my early leadership days really sort of influenced the fact that I was trying to control too much, as opposed to allowing, people to be far more flexible and far more dynamic. The team that I've got with me on the skills journey is incredible. They're doing an amazing job, and they need room to run. So, give people room to run.
So now I've got the reverse question for you. What happens when they break the trust? How do you manage that?
What's the nature of the break? Was something done in all genuine sincerity that aligned to the culture, that aligned to where we were going, and it was done with an intent that was true of heart, or was it something that was malicious? If it's a malicious activity, then it's a fairly simple hardline approach. Yeah. If it's not, you've got to give people room to make mistakes, as long as the intention was pure.
Yeah. So the question, just to clarify, was what if they break the trust, not what if they make a mistake? And I say that in the sense of, a mistake people can make, and it can be an accident. And like you say, if it's true of heart and best of intentions, and you support them through it. But it's when they break the trust, it's beyond that, and that's the question. And I think the answer is the hard line, and that's
I'll
appropriate and fair.
I'll phrase it this way. I'll sort of take a moment to phrase it this way. If someone has broken your trust, then they haven't been fulfilling the behaviour guidelines in regards to transparency, empathy, honesty, integrity. They've broken one of those covenants of behaviour that you're asking everyone to sign up to. If that's the case, then they've signed their own decision path.
I like that, sign their own decision path. And I think one of the worst things is when mistakes are repetitive and a pattern, and then they refuse to own them, and they actually continually blame other things or other aspects, or even even other people, when there's quite clear evidence that it's them, undisputable written stuff. I think that's the thing that's a real kicker that can almost be the.
I think it's a behaviour. Really, it really is poor behaviours. I've always been a believer in, certainly in the early days, was employing people with the right aptitude and the right attitude. Skills are something that we can we can train. Whereas you've got to bring those other two aspects to the table, else you're not going to drive with the same culture.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I was obviously asking that for a friend. Who just needed some reassurance. So that's cool. Well, hey, look, we're just almost on 9:40. We'll get you back to working from home and recovering from COVID, and
thanks.
Give those a couple of tweaks. Get the antenna set for the rest of Friday. Any prediction on the Blues versus Crusaders game?
Go the Blues.
Go the Blues. Yeah, well, I'm having this huge debate. So, as you'll know, Dave Clark's from Otago, but a Blues supporter because he lives up here. I've now just crossed the boundary to living in Auckland as long as I've lived in Dunedin, and so now it's like, well, do I support the mainland and the Crusaders, who actually done nothing for Otago, or do I support my now home? Well, it's been home for a long time, but it's now crossed that boundary to being the longest lived home. So I think I might have to say, go the Blues.
Go the Blues. All right.
But I'm still a Highlander, still a Otago. Just in this match. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you so much. We normally do a bit of a closing remark, so I'll just give a bit of a summary and give you a second to think for your closing remark for today, which might be a little bit more than go the Blues. But we've had Tim Partington on here today from Skills, and supported by Parallo, Simon and Shaun, who are great supporters of AFQY and have supported the CIO YARN Live throughout this month. So thank you to them. And through the key questions of culture, technology, and lesson. So we looked at the culture being, everyone going in the same direction, paddling the same locker together. We can look at deviations, but we're not doing U-turns, which I thought was a really powerful way of looking at it. And then looking at tech, the fact that the Polytech is what I'll refer to it as a group. Polytech group have all sort of had a big change. So Tipuinga, I think, is the new group. So there's been you've been working through some of the stuff going back to them and some of the stuff going forward under Skills, a bit of a different scenario to some of the other organizations, I imagine, who are all just getting brought together. But that's because your business is global. And then the lesson, which is, I wrote it in there. Luckily, I wrote it in the notes. Trust your team earlier and support them rather than corral and constrain them. And some great references to lessons learned at McDonald's from the time that you were 16 to 20, working there for 4 years. So with that, Tim, what's your closing remark? What would you like to leave people with to take away in addition to all of that?
Look, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate this morning. At present, and certainly over the last couple of years with COVID impacting us all, for me, it's about people. We really need to focus, be kind, and be caring and look after our people. We've all lost people over the last several years, and of recent times more so. So I think just try and be a little bit more caring in your approach to how you lead everyone.
That is beautiful. I like it. And I'm just getting that tapped into here. So with that, we can say ka kite anō, or what would be the classic Aussie goodbye?
See you, mate.
See you, mate.
See
All
you,
right,
mate.
with that, I'll press end broadcast, but stay on the line, sir. Thank you so much for today. It's been a pleasure. And I'll say ka kite anō to all of our Kiwi mates out there too. Alrighty.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Didn't press the button. Whoops. There we go. Now we've got